'Twas the night before Christmas, and all through the hood, all the creatures were lurking, up to no good. I in my hoodie and Deanna in her cap had just laid back for a quick power nap, when out on our rooftop there arose such a clatter that I hopped off of the couch to see what was the matter. When what to my nearsighted eyes should appear were Krampus himself, holding an old English beer. When I think of the word hood, I think of a person, a place, and perhaps even a thing. I'm Sir Creepsta, and welcome to Muhlenberg County Ghost Stories from the Hood. Tonight's tale of terror is entitled No Place Like Home. When I think of Christmas, the fondest memories that come to mind are those that involve my mama telling me and my siblings the true meaning of Christmas, which in fact is the birth of Jesus Christ, our Savior. Closely followed with those memories of my father rounding up myself and my brother, and then traveling to the nearest woods, going deep into them, then picking out and chopping down the finest family Christmas tree that he could possibly find, then dragging it out of the forest, loading on top of the car, and taking it back to our home. Once home, he would mount it with the help from me and my brother, and then allow Mama to give life to it by working miracles of beauty on it, by decorating it from top to bottom. There are also the memories of Mama blasting Christmas carols played on the radio of our console stereo that was located in the living room. Then finally, on Christmas Day, came the opening and sharing of gifts, topped off later on by one of Mama's masterpieces of delicious Christmas dinner. But for many, Christmas wasn't quite as delightful. There were many families that had no Christmas at all, due to the various unfortunate, heartbreaking reasons. Tonight's tale of terror is one that shows just how priceless one's home can be to an entire family around the holiday season, especially when this particular family's misfortune was probably no fault of their own, but rather because of most likely faulty electricity and a dried out pine tree. So, sit back, relax, grab some snacks, and be terrified by yet another Muhlenberg County ghost story from the Hood. Although nearly all of my stories that I've shared with you have taken place within the county, there are some stories that have been shared with me through various friends and loved ones that have taken place in hoods and woods of other counties as well as states. Tonight's tale of terror happens to be one of those. It happens to take place on a countryside road located on the outskirts of Ohio County. But before I go any further, please don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. Also, click on the bell icon and select all. That way, you can be notified each and every time I drop a new video. Back in 1995, after going through a very hard breakup with someone I had spent nearly 10 years of my life with, I decided to leave Nashville and move back home. After having been home for about a week or so, I knew that I had to find some type of employment, and I had to find it quick. By the grace of God, my prayers were answered when my uncle would come to me and ask if I wanted the job. Without any hesitation, nor care of what or where the job would be, I joyfully accepted his offer. At the time, my uncle was a supervisor for a company called J&L Chemical, which did cleanup work at the time for Logan Aluminum, located in Russellville, Kentucky. Even though I gratefully appreciated my uncle for getting me the job, it only took a couple of days for me to quickly realize that it's not always easy to work for an in-law. Fully aware of this too, by the end of my first week there, my uncle came to me with a job opening he'd heard about from another part of the plant called melting cast. I gracefully took the job upon his first offer. The job's hours were from 5 a.m. to 2 p.m., which worked out perfect for me. And the only bad thing about the job was having to be able to deal with the extreme heat the melting casters put off while cleaning up around them. It didn't take long for me to become close friends with our small 5-man crew, especially with a friend of mine that we called Country Boy Jack. Jack was as good as they come, and as free-hearted as anyone I ever grew up with around the hood, based on the things I would see him do for many of my co-workers, as well as for myself. One day, while we're taking a quick break, for some unknown reason, I shared one of my personal paranormal stories that I experienced with him. And to my surprise, not only did Jack listen to every word I said of it, he actually enjoyed it. So much so that he too shared a story of his own with me. A story that not only involved himself, but also one of the other guys too, that worked alongside he and I. According to Jack, he lived about 3 miles off the main road in Hartford, Kentucky. There are only a couple of other houses on the same road he lived on at the time, and they were kind of scattered out between one another. There were no street lights of any kind on this particular road, creating a pitch-black atmosphere at night all around. Being a country boy, Jack told me that this was something that he had grown used to, and that the lack of neighbors didn't bother him one bit. He had only lived at this particular house for nearly a year, so he was really only starting to settle in and get used to being in the home he lived in at the time. According to Jack, the country living was a dream come true for him, and he enjoyed every minute of it, especially the first year, providing a pleasant spring, summer, as well as fall in the house that he lived in the year 1993. It wasn't until the winter of that same year that things would forever change for him, and the way he ever looked at anything being remotely paranormal. Jack would go on to tell me that it was very cold on a December night, Christmas Eve to be exact, and for reasons unknown, he decided to have himself a stiff drink of liquor and sit on the front porch, taking in the cold country breeze as he drank his Jack Daniels. He told me that he'd only been there sitting out there for about 10 minutes or so when he thought that he saw some shadows of something coming down the long, dark road that ran right in front of his house. Up until then, Jack said that the only things that he ever saw were deer, a handful of coyotes, and other small critters that were native to the woods. But this time, it was different. Jack stated that the closer the figures got to him, once his eyes came into full nighttime focus, he could clearly see that what he thought was an animal or animals of some sort were actually people walking down the dark road. According to Jack, judged by the shadows he saw, there was a total of 5 figures coming down the road towards him. The shadows consisted of 2 large figures and 3 small ones. At this point, Jack said that he thought, like anyone would, there were just some friends or family of his neighbor from up the road taking a nighttime stroll down the dark road. So being the good neighbor he considered himself to be, he yelled out to them, "Hello." But to his surprise, no one yelled back at him, nor appeared to even look his way. Jack told me that it was as if they didn't hear him at all. So he yelled louder at them, but still no reply. At this point, Jack told me that he thought they were just being rude and unneighborly-like. So he grabbed up his bottle and went back inside the house, silently wishing them a Merry Christmas as he closed his front door. The following Christmas Day, Jack said that he went into town to grab some beer, and it was there that he would run into a neighbor of his that lived further up from him, closer to the main road. After telling the neighbor Merry Christmas, Jack told me that he decided to ask the neighbor what other families lived on the road besides them. The neighbor responded to Jack with a puzzled look upon his face, telling him that as far as he knew, there were no other families living on the road, at least none that he knew of, besides himself, another husband and wife he knew, and of course Jack, who lived alone. By now, Jack said that he was completely baffled because he knew what he'd witnessed just the night before. But before he could say anything else, Jack would tell me that an elderly lady who had overheard the conversation, and she approached he and his neighbor and told them that yes, several years back, there was a family that lived about a half a mile or so past Jack's house. The woman would go on to tell Jack the rumor had it that most likely the family Christmas tree caught on fire was the reason the entire family had all perished in the fire on Christmas Eve while they were all asleep. Not one to easily be spooked, Jack said that the news of this tragedy not only scared the crap out of him, it also broke his heart. The lady would go on to say that it also had been rumored that the family had been seen on occasion on Christmas Eve, to be exact, traveling the gravel road in search of their house that had been lost to a fire many years ago. After leaving the store, Jack told me that he would spend the most of the entire following year trying to capture, as proof, the ghosts of the family he had seen on Christmas Eve, but he never could. According to Jack, it wasn't until nearly the end of the year when he and the other co-worker that I had mentioned at the beginning of the story were hanging out on Christmas Eve at all days that it dawned upon him, after several Jägermeisters, that the thought he would ask his friend if by chance he believed in ghosts, and if so, if he wanted to see some. Jack said that his friend quickly took on his offer, and together the two of them stumbled to his front porch. It was cold as heck outside, according to Jack, and after having been outside for what seemed to be forever with nothing happening, just as they were about to head back into the house, his friend punched him in the chest and said, "Look, is that what you were talking about?" And to their surprise, there they were, as clear as day, heading down the long gravel road directly towards them. As the family slowly ascended upon them, Jack recalled that this time was completely different from his previous experience, stating that this time, when the family had made its way in front of their house, instead of continuing on their way, like the time before, they all suddenly stopped, and in unison slowly turned and looked in he and his friend's direction for what seemed to be like an eternity, before turning around and continuing down the dark road in search of a home that was no longer there. Jack said that before he could say a word to his friend had leapt off the porch, ran to his car, and drove away from his house like a madman, never once saying goodbye. Time would go on, and Jack would move away from his house. About 2 months later, scared out of his pants, and his friend would vow to never come to visit him again, no matter where he lived. So, if you happen to find yourself on a dark, eerie road on Christmas Eve in Ohio County, it leads to a dead end, and by chance, you pass by a family of 5, do so with caution. For you too, just might have had a run-in with Jack's ghost in search of their long-lost home. I am Sir Creepsta, and until next time, stay terrified. Krampus spoke not a word as he reached for his sack, dug deeper down in it, pulling out a 6-pack. Then he placed his withered fingers on the side of his chin, reached into the sack one more time, pulling out some seagull gin. Krampus then sprung from the rooftop, and to the other creatures he let out a whistle, and off they all ran like the down of a thistle. But I heard him yell out as he vanished into the night, "Merry Christmas to all, and to all a good night. This video is dedicated to my precious mother, Miss Marie Anita Smith, who this week gained her wings to come and go and join the Lord. I love you, Mama, more than words can ever say. And to say that you'll miss would be the understatement of the year. But one thing I do know for sure, Mama, is that I will definitely see you when I get there.